This video is to help clarify a few things about the composition of the Earth. Now you have two content pages, and for this topic, you're going to be creating your own project that explains the composition of the Earth, the interior, the inside of the Earth, its layers, what they're made of, and what's going on inside those layers. So I have this slideshow or this slide deck available to you with lots and lots of information. Okay, this is more of a student-guided kind of project. So a lot of information is here. You can research on the internet. So I'm not going to go over all of this stuff, right? You can ask me questions in class, but you have all of this at your fingertips. So here's all the information about each layer. In this video, I'm going to clear up just a few things. When you learn about the Earth's layers, you usually learn a very simplified version of it, right? We know that this is the crust at the top. We know that there's like an upper mantle. Sorry, my computer's lagging a little bit when I wrote that. Let's try that again. There's an upper mantle. There's also this lower part of the mantle. Then you have an outer core and an inner core. However, that's not all that there really is. I mean, this is one way to separate the layers of the Earth based on kind of what they're made of. However, when we learn about the Earth, there's a lot more going on in these layers. What I want to tell you in this video is that the top of the Earth, like the crust, is all very, very hard. However, the very tippy top of the mantle is actually also a hard, I was going to say crunchy, but it's also a hard, solid layer. And so there's another term, which you will see as you're doing the project, that's called the lithosphere. The lithosphere, you should definitely write this down in your notes, is the crust, and it's the upper part of the mantle. Now remember, we call it the lithosphere because it's all solid rock, right? It's not really heavy, kind of mushy moving rock. This is the solid part of the Earth. So the solid part of the Earth happens to be all of the crust and a little tiny bit of the mantle, the very top of the mantle. So we call that part the lithosphere. All right. So then you'll also come across this other part. There's information about the lithosphere here. Talk about the asthenosphere. This is very important for your notes too. The asthenosphere. The most important thing about this is the asthenosphere is usually considered the part right below the lithosphere in the upper mantle. But what happens in here that's very important is called convection currents. We're going to learn a lot about these in the next unit, but it's very important that you do some research on these convection currents because it is essential for understanding how the Earth is composed and how stuff moves around in the Earth. Essentially, I'll explain it here very quickly and basically, is that the Earth's inside is really hot, right? Leftover heat from its formation, but also because of radioactive material inside the Earth. And that heat doesn't get, distributed evenly throughout the whole Earth. So the Earth's inside doesn't heat perfectly evenly. And there happens to be some warmer spots. Now in those warmer spots, when you have a convection current, the heat is going to rise. The warmer spots forming a convection current. What will happen is, since the mantle is pretty movable, kind of mushy, plastic they say, the heat will rise, and as it hits the lithosphere, the hard part of the Earth, or it gets further away from the core, it starts to cool and it'll slide to the side. And then when it finally is all cooled down, it will fall back down to the bottom of the asthenosphere, where then it can get heated up again and rise. This rising of the warm mantle, and then the cooling and sinking of the colder part, creates these sort of circles of movement. These are called convection currents. Hot stuff's rising, cold stuff sinking, and the cycle continues, which makes constant movement inside of the Earth's interior. They look like this. Now these are what are responsible partly for the plate tectonics, which we'll learn later, but I wanted to mention that. Okay? This also is why the Earth has a magnetic field. The movement of these iron and nickel and all of the metals and things that are inside the Earth, as they move in these convection currents, it creates a magnetic field. And that's a very important thing because the magnetic field of the Earth protects us from a lot of bad stuff in space, which we'll learn about later. So those are the important things. Remember, all this information is available to you in the slideshow. Use that for your project.